And so I think that as police officers, we need to start realizing that we're not here to police people's responsible decisions as long as they're not harming anyone. And I think that unfortunately in America, law enforcement has been used to kind of police morals a lot of times that are just based on people's personal preference. And I think that we've seen changes in that over time, whether it was things that were racially motivated, such as interracial marriages. We've seen that with laws pertaining to homosexuality in this country. I think that we're going to start seeing that with the issues of drug use.
A lot of people claim that the use of cannabis leads to using stronger drugs. Would you consider cannabis or marijuana to be a gateway drug in any way?
No, and I think that that's been something that has been sold for so long that was just part of the myth and urban legends, as we call it over here in the States. Y'all may use the same term. It's just pretty much been a scare tactic. And going back to the times of reefer madness and the movies and from back in the 30s and 40s, it was just a scare tactic. And people, we hear that to this day. Even 2 days ago, I had a lady say that, every drug addict started on marijuana. And honestly, that's not true. It may be the first illegal drug they tried, but most of them start off on, everything from, beer to coffee. There's other drugs. Just because marijuana is illegal doesn't mean that was the gateway drug. I mean, really and truly, most people start off drinking alcohol, consuming alcohol, and then they'll move on to something else if they're medicating for a reason, self-medication. And I think that's where I think more people are now starting to research information on the internet. That's one good thing I think about the millennial generation is a lot of them do their own research. A lot of them will look up information online. That's one good thing about the internet is it's allowed access to things like this. And when you look back to the 1930s and you see the original testimony and information that was being put out there about marijuana, and then you see the movies like Reefer Madness, and you realize that our entire drug policy in regards to marijuana was based on racism. You have to start questioning whether or not that was a good move, as a country, especially as a police to try and enforce these laws. So the gateway theory is not true, and it's been shown that maybe people start off drinking alcohol. The next easiest thing to move to would be marijuana because it's something that is easier to get to. But then in an illicit drug market, if you go to someone who's selling marijuana, and for example, if you're self-medicating for depression or anything else, and all of a sudden you decide that alcohol doesn't do it for you anymore, marijuana's not doing it for you anymore. Maybe the guy that sells you your marijuana also knows a guy that sells heroin, and next thing you know, you're trying heroin. But most people don't do that. Most people will start with alcohol and they stay with alcohol. Some people will have an opportunity to try marijuana and they enjoy marijuana more, so they start smoking marijuana and don't drink alcohol. Most people, though, that try marijuana never even go on to continue using it. Most of them never even develop any type of tolerance or any type of build up to where they feel a need for it. I mean, it's not physically addictive. They may develop a psychological addiction to it, but most of those people then never go on to use a harder drug. So to sit there and say that we should make marijuana illegal because a small percentage, less than 1%, go on to become a heroin addict, then we should go back to making alcohol illegal because look at how many people who drink alcohol go on to use marijuana. So again, it's a thing where you're not going to stop it through prohibition, and you're definitely not going to address other issues like harder drug use, as we say here in America, with meth or heroin or cocaine, by trying to keep going after marijuana. And at some point, you just have to realize that all you're doing is you're aiding drug cartels and street gangs by allowing this to remain illegal.
This war on drugs is now over 40 years old. How would you say that Richard Nixon's war on drugs have worked out?
Oh, I would say that we have to be close to that. I mean, you're talking federal tax dollars and state tax dollars that go to this, and the sad part of it is I don't think people realize how much of that, especially in regards to people will talk about, for example, here in Missouri, we're trying to pass a medical marijuana bill now initiative, and I think a lot of times people believe that a vast amount of this money is going to stopping the drug dealers, high-end drug dealers, and we're going after high-end drugs. Things that people see a lot of impact from with meth or heroin use. And if you really look at it, a vast amount of our resources and what we call this war on drugs go to misdemeanor marijuana users. And to me, it's like arresting somebody who uses alcohol without hurting anyone else. So when you're arresting or spending somewhere between, let's say, upwards of 75% of your time and effort over misdemeanor marijuana amounts, you have to wonder whether or not we're really using that money for any good. In our country, we have a high number of murder cases that go unsolved. We have an enormous amount of rape cases and sexual assault cases that go unsolved in this country. So there's a lot of other resources that this money could be going to. A lot of people have the idea that if we legalize the drugs, then we'll see a drop in police officers or drop in police service. I think actually the idea would be that we point that towards crimes that actually have victims, whether it's burglary cases or thefts or going back to sexual assault cases. Those resources should be better used. If you look at it in our country right now in America, we don't stop the flow of marijuana in this country, much less any other drug. But marijuana is actually becoming a better product. The marijuana in America now is probably some of the best that you can get in the world. I mean, we're actually becoming better at growing marijuana in this country than stopping it. We're surely not stopping the drug cartels of Mexico from getting it here, because they benefit greatly from prohibition in this country, especially from marijuana. Some cartels get a vast amount of their money from what we call Mexican ditchweed. So on top of the fact that we're just wasting money, we're allowing, like I said before, we're allowing these criminal enterprises to benefit and make more money off of it. And in the meantime, while we spend so much time and resources on trying to jail people, we're seeing in other countries, especially over in Europe, where money spent on drug education, spent on drug addiction rehabilitation programs, things like that are actually working much better than what we've been doing, which is just jailing people and having them face the consequences of an arrest and a conviction. So we spent a lot of money in a war on drugs, and here we are from Nixon's days of the 70s to 2016, and we've got just as much drugs in this country, if not better drugs in this country. The usage rate has not went down. We actually probably nationwide see the same percentage of use, especially for marijuana, as we did in the 80s. So, if you look back and say, wow, we spent billions of dollars, what do we have to show for it? And all we have to show for it is a lot of prisons with a lot of people sitting in jail, a lot of people that are haunted by criminal convictions over misdemeanor marijuana arrest.
You have the highest prison population in the world. You got a higher prison population than China and Russia. How is this an effect of the war on drugs?
Well, I think there's two things of that. One is a lot of people say, well, there's not a lot of people in prison for just simple possession. And there's not. I mean, a lot of people that you see in jail now, especially long-term, are people who are selling marijuana. But, I mean, we don't arrest people at curb stores for selling beer. But people get this on their record. And nowadays, criminal records are checked by employers. And the federal government, even misdemeanor marijuana arrests can lose benefits. You can lose college scholarships, college grant money. So what we do is we get these people who, in their early parts of their life, have marijuana on them, get arrested for it, and then it haunts them, whether they're trying to get education, whether they're trying to get a job later. And like you said, even if they go into jail for a short amount of time, what does that expose them to that they weren't involved with before? But I think the biggest thing is just looking at the long-term effects of how much this will affect you. We've had people who have probably been affected more detrimentally for a misdemeanor marijuana arrest than people who I know who were convicted of driving while intoxicated, which to me is a lot more dangerous because you're actually driving in a state that you could have hurt somebody and put yourself in a position to hurt someone, as opposed to somebody who was just driving down the road, not at that time under the influence of marijuana, but just had some in their purse or their pocket. So like you said, I think the biggest thing is how I think for some reason we believe that the threat of jail, the threat of fines makes people stop doing something, and that's just not true. I mean, if you look at it from what I believe is a sociological aspect, crime is a decision people make based on risk and rewards. If laws prevented people from doing stuff, then we wouldn't have crime because we already have laws covering it. If you look at speeding here in the United States, people make a conscious decision to speed on the interstate every day, and most of them do, because the risk and reward is they believe that it's worth the risk. There's not as many police officers out there. The fine's something that they can pay if they do get caught. So it doesn't really make anyone not do it. It just makes them decide whether or not it's worth being caught if they do it or not. And I think that's where we're kind of looking now with marijuana, where there's a lot of people who are saying, hey, maybe if we don't make it legal, we definitely need to quit making it to where it's causing so much harm on persons who are arrested with it. And you're seeing more what we call decriminalization, which I think is a stopgap measure until we can legalize it. I think there's a lot of cities now that make it a small fine, $50 fine, something like that, no jail time. It doesn't go on their criminal record. And I think that's great, but I think we still need to move towards legalization just to prevent that from even being an issue. Again, I think morally as a country, we have to quit saying, well, I'm totally okay with glamorizing alcohol use and okay with my friends using alcohol. I'm okay with myself using alcohol, but marijuana is bad. And if you use marijuana, then you get whatever you have coming to you. I mean, let's face it, we're both using a drug, whether it's alcohol or marijuana, and we're both doing it for the same reasons in most cases, and that's to enjoy ourselves or relax or have a good time or whatever. And I think it's unfair that we somehow justify our drug use just because the government picked ours over somebody else's. And like you said, I think it's more harm probably putting people in these positions and putting it to where people can't get certain jobs and can't get certain benefits over something that they probably were using responsibly to begin with.
The war on drugs has also been linked up to racism and the war on black people. What is your comment on that?
Well, when I first heard that a few years ago, that drug enforcement was just kind of built on the idea of racism and was enforced unequally, I would have disagreed. I didn't see that. I mean, I'm not racist. Most of the people I've grown up with and had worked with weren't racist, so I couldn't see the tie-in to what they were talking about. But then I started researching, some of the information they had, and you realize, especially with the Americans for Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU in the United States, they had produced a paper called Black and White, I believe it was called, and it showed the arrest differences, the numbers, the ratios from some cities to the states that showed that African Americans were arrested a lot more than whites. And I guess the natural reaction to that is African Americans use marijuana more than white people. And then you look at the usage details and you realize that that's not really true, that whites used marijuana more than blacks until just recently. And it's really still close to 50-50, but you're seeing vastly different arrest numbers. So whether it's intended now or not, I think that there is a level of enforcement that is different. Again, I don't know. I don't think that the basic police officer on the street goes out there every day, targeting drug enforcement as a racial tool to use against non-whites. I think it's just something that has happened due to over-aggressive enforcement in high crime areas. And unfortunately, a lot of times high crime areas are low poverty areas, and low poverty areas a lot of times have high minority populations. And in this idea that we're going to clean up high crime areas by going after drug arrest and just saturating areas with police officers, arresting everybody for everything, we've done that to where it is enforced unequally. So I think it's one of those things where it's a consequence of the drug war. One of the things I talked to Neil Franklin about, sometimes I'll say that the drug war has been a